In 1993, scientists found a new technology known as CRISPR, which allowed them to treat incurable diseases through genetic editing. However, in 2016, the US government banned CRISPR because of its potential for misuse, calling it a weapon of mass destruction. In the present day, the space station Athena-1 is in absolute ruins, and the entire crew is dead except for Carrie, who is asking the control room for help. However, her boss won't open the door to the escape capsule unless Carrie retrieves the mutagen samples first. Afraid but desperate to survive, Carrie goes through the wreck and secures the 3 samples, but unfortunately she's spotted by the enemy. It turns out that an experiment gone wrong has created a monstrous mutated rat that went crazy, and now it's coming after Carrie. The astronaut rushes away, dodging the debris and the flames as fast as she can, and she makes it into the escape capsule right before the rat can catch her. Carrie leaves and watches the station explode, but unfortunately the rat's rampage has damaged the capsule too, so it also explodes and kills Carrie while the pieces fall to Earth. Sometime later at San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary, primatologist Davis introduces his friend Nelson and 2 new employees to the gorilla enclosure. The newest member, Pavo, is quite aggressive and is bothering the females, so Davis uses sign language to calm him down. At that moment, Davis's best friend George shows up, and the presence of another male gorilla causes Pavo to get aggressive again. One of the employees gets scared and tries to run away, so Pavo goes after him and pushes him to the floor. But before anything serious happens, George cuts in and scares Pavo away. Once it's over, George and Davis exchange many jokes through sign language, and Davis reminds George that Pavo is family now, so he also must be protected. When Davis asks for a fist bump, George gives him the middle finger first. Afterward, one of the employees tries to ask Davis out, but he turns her down, and Nelson teases him for preferring animals over people. Later in the evening, the 3 mutagen canisters that Carrie retrieved arrive on Earth. One lands in the sanctuary and sprays George with its contents. The second one lands in the forest and is found by a wolf, while the third one falls into the river and it's swallowed by a crocodile. The next day, Davis arrives at the sanctuary to hear bad news from Nelson. George is behaving unusually aggressively and has broken into the grizzly enclosure, where he killed a bear. When Davis checks on George, he discovers the gorilla has been wounded by the bear too. George is sad, and he admits he made a mistake and apologizes, but the biggest shock is that George has grown much bigger in size. Davis's team investigates the area, and when they find the canister, Davis decides to keep it for research. Later, he studies George's blood work and thinks it doesn't make any sense because there's a lethal concentration of growth hormone, which should have killed him instantly. Nelson thinks George should be put down, but Davis refuses until they learn more. Meanwhile, siblings Brett and Claire are having an argument. Their company Energyne is the one behind the research of the mutagen, and Brett is furious over all the money they've lost when the station exploded. However, Claire is happy with the results because the mutated rat confirms the Project Rampage experiment is successful. She also has hope for progress because there's a report from the Meteor Society revealing the location of one of the containers, which was made to withstand re-entry, so she hires Burke and his private military service to fetch it. Burke's team travels to the forest and discovers that the canister has been damaged and emptied, plus all the wolves have been killed, which they report to Claire. This makes her realize the wolf is mutating, so she orders Burke to capture the beast. In the city, Kate watches the news and learns both about the Athena-1 tragedy and George's attack on the bear. Because she's a former Energyne scientist, she puts 2 and 2 together and rushes to the sanctuary, where she tells Davis that the canister he found is a sample she made. Davis is wary of her, but Kate begins mentioning all the symptoms George is going through to prove she's the real deal and the only one that can cure George. It turns out the mutagen is editing George's DNA by mixing with DNA from other animals, causing him to grow rapidly and become more aggressive. Suddenly, George becomes enraged and starts hitting the cage until he breaks it and escapes. Then he begins storming through the sanctuary and spreading chaos among the guests, even destroying cars with his fists. The police immediately arrive and get ready to shoot him, but Davis cuts in and calms George down using sign language. The cops put down their guns, but a sniper in a helicopter doesn't get the memo and knocks George down with tranquilizer darts. Meanwhile in the forest, Burke and his team come across Ralph, the mutated wolf. They manage to shoot him down from the helicopter, then they land to go looking for the body. However, the body is gone and instead they find a huge paw print on the ground, which makes a few soldiers scared. Moments later, Ralph suddenly attacks and begins killing all the soldiers one by one. They try to defend themselves with their weapons, and the helicopter uses a machine gun as well, but after the earlier shot, Ralph has developed a very thick skin and the bullets only tickle him. He's also grown so big that he can leap incredibly high in the air and attack the helicopter, destroying it. On the ground, Burke is the only survivor and attempts to fight the wolf again, but Ralph easily devours him. In the evening, Davis and Kate are arrested by Agent Russell of the FBI for doing illegal experiments on George, who who is being taken away in a government plane with them. When Davis sees George in the cage, he notices his wounds are already healing. Then Russell tries to interrogate them, teasing Davis for quitting the army to take care of animals and behaving like a complete twat by insulting the duo and ignoring their warnings on how dangerous it's to keep George in a plane. He also reveals that Kate was fired from Energyne 2 years ago after she tried to steal the company's research, for which she spent 13 months in prison. This causes Kate to admit she can't actually cure George, and now Davis doesn't trust her anymore. Back in Energyne, Claire learns Kate was arrested and Brett thinks she's gathering evidence to bring down the company, so he sees her as a threat. It's also revealed that Claire does have a cure for the mutagen, so she makes a plan. She'll attract all the mutated animals to her building by using low-frequency radio waves, and the military will be waiting for them to kill them. That way Claire can collect the DNA and sell it later. She doesn't worry about Kate because she's sure George will kill everyone in the plane sooner or later. When Claire turns on the device, Ralph immediately stops rampaging through the roads and the cars and starts making his way to the city. Lizzie the mutated crocodile also senses it and takes off as well. On the plane, George is supposed to be sedated, but Claire's trick makes him wake up absolutely furious. He destroys the cage and starts wrecking everything that surrounds him, tossing people around as if they weighed nothing. The guards start shooting at him to no avail, and when Russell tries to go after him, George quickly knocks him down under his foot. Davis tries talking to him, but at that moment another soldier starts shooting again, enraging George once more. A bullet ends up hitting a box of explosives that blow up and destroy the plane's turbine, causing it to start going down. While George is pushed against the wall by a cart, Davis rushes to put parachutes on himself, Kate, and Russell, and they manage to jump off the plane right before it crashes with George inside it. However, when they land and check the crash site, they don't find the body. There's a trail on the grass though, indicating George survived and is making his way to the city too. At Energyne, Claire's furious to hear Kate survived the plane crash when the FBI arrives to take away all of the company's research and records. Attempting to clean her own name, Claire tells the agents that it was Kate behind all the chaos caused by the beasts. Back to Davis, he tries to leave Kate behind because he's tired of always seeing the worst of humanity, which he's already got a lot of during the war. When he rescued George, he was just a baby hiding under the car while he watched people butchering his mother. However, Davis decides to give Kate a chance when she explains why she created CRISPR. She wanted to cure her brother's deadly illness, but when the company wanted to weaponize the mutagen, she tried to destroy it and was sent to prison for it. While she was locked up, her brother died. Russell also now likes the duo because they saved his life, so he gets in contact with his men to be rescued. The group is then taken to an Air Force base, where Colonel Blake shows them footage of George and Ralph running to the city. Davis points out it's impossible for a gorilla and a wolf to travel in a straight line to the same destination, and Kate says they're being called by something, meaning Claire must be waiting with an antidote. Russell defends their advice, but Blake doesn't want civilians involved and sends them away. Outside, Davis tries to negotiate with the soldiers to let them go, but since it doesn't work, he starts a fight and quickly knocks both guards out. Then they try to steal a helicopter, and when Russell sees them, he gives them the keys and a phone to stay in contact. Meanwhile, Blake's team attempts to stop the beasts, but their weapons including the big explosions are useless, and the entire army is wiped out. This makes Blake decide to evacuate the city before the beasts get there, and Russell sends that information to Davis, who doesn't think they can get everyone out in time. When George and Ralph arrive at the city, the destruction immediately begins. They bring down buildings, destroy vehicles, and even hit any helicopter that comes closer. The military meets them with a vast army of tanks and weaponry, but nothing works, and the beasts just keep themselves busy wrecking everything in their path. Soon Lizzie also arrives through the river, joining the other beasts to cause even more damage, using its big mouth to bite the tanks and jets that get in the way. Desperate for a solution, Blake orders his men to get a bomb ready to wipe out half of the city. Russell tries to change his mind, explaining Davis and Kate are on their way to retrieve the antidote, but Blake doesn't trust them after they stole his helicopter and kicks Russell out. At that moment, Russell gets the result of the evidence found in the company and calls for a ride so he can do some arrests. While the jet with the bomb takes off, Davis and Kate make it to Energyne and steal 3 vials of antidote. However, Claire sees them on the security cameras and comes to stop them, explaining the antidote stops the aggression but will keep the beast's size. Then she takes the vials from Kate and shoots Davis, who falls to the ground unconscious. Afterward, Claire takes Kate as a hostage and takes her to the roof with her, but before they can escape in a helicopter, George climbs to the top of the building and breaks the helicopter's tail. This also almost kills Kate, but at that moment Davis comes back and grabs her as he explains the bullet didn't hit any vital organs. While George proceeds to destroy the antenna sending the signal, Kate reveals that she managed to keep one of the vials, so they can still save George at least. Claire tries to confront the duo again, so Kate uses the chance to put the antidote in her bag before punching her as Davis calls for his friend. George comes forward and grabs Kate to eat her, therefore getting the antidote as well. Meanwhile, Brett is trying to escape through the stairs, taking the last computer and a lab rat with him so he can make business again later. He bumps into Russell on the ground floor, and the agent takes the things from him in exchange for letting him go instead of arresting him. However, when Brett makes it outside, he's suddenly crushed by falling debris. Outside, Lizzie and Ralph join in the destruction of the building, while George starts to calm down, thanks to the antidote. Davis and Kate take the broken helicopter right before the building crumbles down, causing the helicopter to crash to the ground, but also allowing the duo to survive. Then, Davis notices there are lots of civilians still around, and that George is finally feeling better. Lizzie and Ralph are fighting each other, so Davis tells Kate to go find Russell while he arms himself up and joins the fight with George. The beasts roll around and exchange vicious hits, but in the end it's Lizzie who kills Ralph by biting him on the neck. Now it's George versus Lizzie, but it seems George is struggling to gain the upper hand, so Davis throws a belt of grenades at Lizzie's back. Unfortunately, Lizzie has grown very powerful, and the grenades don't do much damage. Lizzie recovers quickly and throws George against a building, causing a steel bar to go through the gorilla's chest. Then Lizzie tries to come closer to finish him, but Davis comes through and uses as many weapons as he can take from the helicopter to distract the crocodile. Lizzie falls for it and begins going after Davis, almost killing him. However, George takes the steel bar and jumps in the air to stab Lizzie in the eyes, finally ending the fight. Kate reaches Russell and tells him about the antidote, who calls Blake to pass the message. Blake notices the deaths on the screens and decides to abort the airstrike mission, accepting George is on the good side. Unfortunately, George passes out after winning, and Davis has to take a moment to grieve his best friend. But when he's about to leave, Davis notices some twitching and realizes George is just messing with him. The gorilla offers his middle finger before Davis and he share a fist bump. Now Davis's next mission is to find a place where they can place George. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.